Okay, here we go.
Little bit
5,
of-
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, visionaries. Welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an everyday specialist, a deck building visionary, just like having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. What's up,
All right.
everyone?
Time.
Listening at 2 times. That was less than. I think that was less than.
You do
about
that
4
just for them,
seconds.
don't you? Just
Oh,
to
yeah.
like mess them
Oh
totally up.
yeah.
You
Was
bet
that your
your
Micro
britches
Machine
I
guy
do that,
impression?
Maurice. You bet it.
That was your
All right,
Micro
guys.
Machines guy impression, right? That's what that
Oh
was.
man, dude, I used to practice that for fun. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so this week, guys, we have aptly named the show thanks to your Watchman friend, Masta Blasta, because this is going to be a Velen's Mind Blast Priest episode for the deck of the week, which is our last. I guess this should be our last standard deck featured until the expansion release. Unless the expansion decides to take a week off after they reveal all the cards and then give us the cards. I don't know what else they could do. But welcome
Who
to the
knows?
live stream. If you guys are here, hopefully the VOD will make its way in because checkboxes have been checked now that aren't default. That should have been default. Twitch, take notes from your small creators. Thank you very much. I'm your host, Rob May. This is episode 134. Today's date is March 24th in the U.S., 25th in Japan. And
That's
we
right.
are like 2 days away from the mega of mega reveals, and the drip feed of
Mm.
55 cards will commence the day after. So joining
Oh,
me
yeah.
is the Oh Yeah Man, Watchman HS. What's up, Grant?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what. This has been since last we met last Saturday. This has been the most roller coaster week in Hearthstone I've had in a very long time. On Sunday, I hit Legend in Wild, and I hit it. I entered at rank 74, so that was cool. And I haven't really played much Wild since there because I'm like, I'm on a double Legend because I'm good enough to do that. So I started grinding out standard ladder. I started at 5 and maybe 1 or 2 stars, and I just like flew up to rank 2 using the Velen's Masta Blasta Your Face In deck that Zetalot posted a while ago that really nobody's been playing. Like, just nobody's been playing this deck. And I'm thinking, oh, hype, this is good. I started racking up my Anduin wins. Last night I was at 499, and I couldn't buy a win. I could not buy a win. Like, I went from 2 down to 3, couldn't get a win. From 3 down to 4, couldn't get a win. So I ended up like ending the day yesterday at like 4 and no stars, or 4 and 1 star. And today I almost bottomed out on the rank 5 floor. I'm just about back into 4 now because I'm running a fun Linessa Paladin deck. But gosh,
Did you walk
dang.
away in between those? You didn't just keep like
No, I walked away.
pushing the button. Okay. I was
I
gonna
walked
say you gotta
away.
take
I
your
got
own
used out of my
advice. You can't
shoes, man.
Oh
gotta
man,
walk
I
away.
was doing that evaluation thing where it's like, what the heck am I doing here? Why am I just hit Legend on Sunday. I should be able to do better than this. What is going on? And I mean, you can tell there's a little bit of angst here, right? I mean, not the Spider-Man kind of angst for poor me, but like angry angst. Like, I'm gonna punch
Spider-Man
Blizzard
3.
in the face angst.
Spider-Man
So,
3
you know,
anger.
Yeah,
else have
That was a
Venom.
bad one.
Venom.
That Topher Grace. No.
Oh gosh. Well, let's go
anyways,
over to Canada for the anti-salt of the high legend ladder in Wild.
Anti-salt. Can I provide that?
Nope.
Okay, yeah.
Not until you
I'm
play
still,
Druid.
No. I am still on my happy high from hitting Legend, and I still go in there in Wild to kind of go, how high can I get? And I play a couple games and like get even higher than I did before. I saw a friend of mine who was in Legend with me, and he friended me after we had like 3 games against each other over and over and over again. And I thought it might be like an angry friend, but it wasn't. He was totally cool. He was up in rank 2. And so I was like,
Whoa.
no, I gotta get up there again. But I did go into standard. I did try and check it out, and I reached out to Discord. I was like, give me a deck. Give me a deck that's kind of like the one I'm already playing, so I don't have to like relearn a whole new strategy. And Wicked Good, and I think it was, help me with his name, Beef Squatch, I think.
Beef Squatch.
Yeah.
Beef Squatch.
Be
Beef
squatch.
Squatch helped me out with some decks, which was really helpful. So I've been playing the Murloc Paladin, which got me up to rank 4, and then I just kind of stalled out. So that's like any other month I'd be over the moon at getting to rank 4. But I don't know. Now that I've hit legend, it's not enough for me, I guess. That's
Yes.
horrible.
Yep.
It's like my expectations have now lifted up and I'm not happy anymore with
We had
things that
a
used to
really
make me
funny
happy.
talk this week where Eve was saying how she's like, I decayed so much on going down from not playing, or I lost a couple games and then got decayed in Legend from basically just not playing. She's like, I'm all the way down at none in like whatever Legend rank. And I was like, man, Eve, being down in the dumpster Legends really must suck. And she's like, oh no, I'm that type of person now. No.
Well,
You
I
have
can't
now
just be
become what you have
happy.
always hated. Ah.
I just want to be
Dumpster Legend.
satisfied. I just want to be happy and just like embrace. You've got there, you did it. But my expectations immediately changed to the new thing,
Now you get
Mhm.
it.
which I
When
used to
people
get
call
after you,
themselves the
Grant, for
dumpster.
this. Would be like, be proud of yourself. You hit legend. That's enough. It's an achievement. And now that I'm there, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's just human nature.
Now
It's
that
just
I'm
easy to
Legend,
fall
I might as
susceptible to-
well be top 10.
Well, you know what? Honestly, the thing that did it, because if I stayed down at rank 300 and lost a bunch of games in Legend, then I would have given up and I would have been like, this is cool, this is fine, I'll go do something else. But
Yeah.
it gave me a taste. When I got up to rank 6, that was such a taste of so close that it gave me a new hunger. It gave me a new thing that I started to reach for. So it should have just like mushed me down in the face after I hit Legend and I would have given up right away, but
Well, I think it's time to start the show. My name's Rob. We're going to be talking through Velen's Mind Blast Priest in a little bit. It was actually Zetalot's list. We had planned to talk about it, and Grant's been, like he was saying earlier, he's been practicing it a lot before he hit the wall. And then Blizzard decided to release their off-meta spotlight, and now it's everywhere. Alongside of a very odd Kingsbane style rogue with Arcane Giants and Gorgonzola. The cheese.
I've seen that deck, but I
they
saw that deck
also-
before Blizzard did it.
Yeah, there also is a Arcane Giants. No, it's a Dragon's Fury big mage with a couple weird inclusions on top of that. So you guys can check those out. How do you beat off meta decks? You play meta decks. So depends on what meta deck it is, because some of these off meta decks are used to target similar to tournament decks, specific archetypes. We can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that if you're playing Kingsbane Rogue, you're typically targeting other hyper control lists, especially Warlock. A lot of these seem to be like Warlock hate decks, or Priest hate decks, something like that. But I just ran Paladin, and I ran into both of these lists about 4 games in a row, between the two of them, the Mage and the Priest list, not the Priest, Mage and the Rogue list. And let me tell you, not only do I really love beating people that like to play Kingsbane, but I really like beating them with Paladin, where they have no hope at all from turn 1. And even when I draw poorly and I see a rogue, I get really happy because I'm like, I kind of want a mulligan so I have a really, really crappy hand and beat them, because that's the best. But yeah, so anyways, I've been playing the Dude Paladin list from Bodicus. I slightly adjusted my list. It has Sea Giants in it. And I swapped the Stegodon out for a second Spellbreaker, and that's been doing a lot of work for me. So shout out to my man Bodicus over at Coin Concede for working in a Dude Paladin list that's running Sea Giants. Sea Giants is something that I was always like, why are people not running this? It makes so much sense now that it's here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
that's
So
when it
anyways-
becomes cheaper with everything else that's on the board, right?
Minions
Right.
on the board,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right.
That's yours
Um,
and theirs.
Yes, it's correct. It's the board in general. So it really
Yeah.
shines in the mirror match. You run the mirror match, and
Yeah.
they do something
like
cool,
free.
and they play Tareem, and you're like, ha, I have 2 sea giants in my hand, pal. Nice 3/3s, bruh. And then you just punch them for 60. So, anyways,
It's a
I've also
shame
seen some
something
really
happened to
interesting
them.
inclusions where people are running Consecration in their decks as a
Yeah.
4-cost card. So you want to be on the lookout for that. I also ran into somebody for some reason thought it was a good idea to run a single copy of Equality for the control matchups. I thought that was really interesting, but I proceeded to punch them in the face because it really sucks in the mirror. So for what it's worth, it could be good if you're seeing a lot of control. But let's get into a little bit more of the Hearthstone news, and I should have a bumper for you. So here we go.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Keep it quick, kid. I ain't got all day.
All right, we have the Brawl this week is the anniversary of 20 years of StarCraft, and it is real fun. I actually did this about 2 or 3 times, not just because I lost my first 1 or 2, but because it was actually enjoyable. Grant, you
Is
wanna
it
talk
because
about
of the
this too?
StarCraft flavor
Yeah.
for you, Rob? Is that why you liked it?
No, I don't like StarCraft that much.
Okay then.
Well, I'm gonna give you my. I just picked Hunter just because I always pick Hunter first for brawls that I've never done before. I don't know why.
Sure.
Maybe just
Aggressive.
because I know that I can hit him for 2 if things start to go south. But I liked it because it was kind of cool. I like modular things, so you can pick a class, but then you can pick kind of how you want your deck to be augmented with the 2 different spells. Let's see, you could pick mechs. I don't remember what they called each of the 3 cards. You could pick like mech augmentation. You could pick
It was
like
tech.
spells, like tech, and then you could have the spells. What they call it? Mind. Is that
Mind?
what they called it? Mind.
Portal.
And then what was the
mech,
third one? It was
Swarm.
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 Because it has to
So,
do with the 3 flavors of StarCraft.
StarCraft,
Tech would be
Terran,
Terran.
Zerg, and Protoss.
Protoss would be Mind, and Zerg would be Swarm.
So I picked a Protoss Hunter. That's what I did, and it was fun. I mean, it was cool. But I'm
Mind
such a
Hunter.
tryhard that it was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go grind ladder now because I want to try and get double legend this month. I don't know if that's going to happen now because of today and yesterday, but it was cool. I thought as far as brawls are concerned, it was kind of a nice different kind of flavor that they've done, and whether it was StarCraft or not, it didn't even matter to me. I know that's why they did it, but
Right.
and it was really cool for me because they give you the 3 packs, and I pulled a Temporis out of one of my packs. Last card in the 3rd pack was like legendary. I'm like, oh, that's the last legendary I'll ever get from this set because I have almost all of them. But like, I don't buy Cobalt's packs anymore just because it's not smart
right.
at this point in time. But
I
so
thought that
lucky
was
me,
really funny
but-
when you said that you got Temporis out of it. And the more I've been thinking about it, there's a food here in Japan called tempura. And
I love tempura.
I always think that tempura, like when people say temporis,
Fried
it's like-
bronze dragon. Boom.
Like I think of a fried dragon. Because
Bronze
usually
dragon.
when you play it, you get fried by your own card.
Temporis is technically from the Infinite Dragonflight, so he's black and white.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
a
well.
black and white corrupted dragon. of
Thank you,
bronze
Lore
flesh.
Master Eve,
I'm
for
sorry.
being Lore
I'm
Mastery.
sorry.
I appreciate
Take a
your
lap.
knowledge and
out.
insight here in this.
I'll go take a lap. I'll be back. I'll be back in 5.
She's gotta go take a lap for her punishment. That's funny. Basically,
Don't you have
I
some
will say
single-digit
one-
legend to work on? No.
she's gonna hit legend again.
I have one thing to say about the Brawl is that the decks themselves, some of them were really bad.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was cool to get the cards because then you knew what you pulled out of them was going to be 3 cheaper, and that was the fun part. But the decks themselves, so many, like I tried Druid because I had a bunch of quests to get done, and Hunter even. And I had like 8 cost cards in my opening hand. Like, all of them were like 6 and 8. It's like, well, I'm not going to be playing any of these probably the entire game. So you're just like waiting for all those 1-cost portals because you can't play anything else.
I had a warlock
Mech
quest,
Mage,
so I
I
just
think,
played
was what
that.
a lot of people.
I didn't know.
I didn't do the Warlock one.
I usually choose my tavern brawl based off of what quests I have in the log, and that's what I end up doing.
Yeah. That's why I did Druid.
But a fun thing too, outside of the tavern brawl with the quests thing, kind of transitioned into this rabbit trail because it was really funny. I was messaging Grant and I was like, "Dude, Murlocs are broken." He's like, "I know, Paladin's so oppressive." I was like, "No, dude, I'm playing the Murloc Shaman with double bloodlust," and he's like, "What?" He's like, "Man, they
Pretty much.
must be such a stale meta unreal how broken they must be. There's like all of these really funny like Reddit salt posts about a deck that's like nobody's playing, and I'm playing it in casual, and I just dumped on 3 meta decks in a row, and I was like, what is this? I just beat somebody with double. I beat a combo Dragon Priest with double Bloodlust with like 3 minions. Because I drew both of my Bloodlusts, and I was able to like continually pump out Murlocs, and he wouldn't board clear me, or he didn't draw his board clears, or he was just comboing, and I was like clearing one of his minions, and I drew a Burlock for like 2 turns, and then I got my Mega Murloc out, whatever his name is, and I got another 2 Burlocks. So I kept freezing. Yeah, Megafin. So I kept freezing his minion. He kept pumping up to combo, kill me. And then I drew my second Bloodlust and hit him in the dome. And then the next game, I'm not even joking, it's a standard control Warlock. And I don't run any silences in this deck. And I was like, I'll cut one of my Murlocs. I'll cut Finja and put in a Earthshock. And, oh, God bless this guy. He had no chance. Because it's basically a bunch, it's the Murloc quest, a crap ton of Murlocs, including Burlocks, and Call in the Finishers, which summons the 4 Murloc 1/1s. The Murloc Totems, right? And then I run double Bloodlust and double Flame Tongue Totem, and then an Earthshock. And that's it. It's just like, it's really weird, but it's super explosive. So let's keep going. I've got the official reveal schedule for March 26th is the reveal stream. Sorry. I'm trying to make sure I get all of these things accurately.
Frodan, right? That's who they decided to hook up with this time? Is Frodan?
I believe that's correct.
Mr. Rainbow Hair himself.
He's pretty fun.
So this will be out
I like
11.
Day 9 too. Like, I've liked the times that they've worked together with Day 9. He's really fun too, but Frodan's really good too.
Yes, this will be at 11 Pacific time on the 26th. This is Monday. So basically by the time this hits your eardrums and you're not listening to the live stream, then y'all better have watched this and come to our Discord and hang out, because you guys can just talk about all the cards you want in there. And then on the 27th through the 9th, or I'm sorry, 27th through the 8th will be daily Hearthstone reveals from different community members across the globe. So you'll want to pay attention to Hearthpwn and Hearthhead and the Hearthstone Twitter feed for those reveals, as well as some of your content creators across the globe. A good
And we'll
person
put
to
them up in our
follow
Discord too, as soon as they come
as we
out.
see
So you
them
could just
and
come
as they get
to
translated.
like one place to get them all, put together.
Right.
You just want to do that.
So there's some cool things that we had discussing this week through those. If you want to check that out, that's our Discord. We talked a lot about some of the cards we're really excited for. I know that some of us are talking about Godfrey this week, and some of us were talking about Darius Crowley.
I have no idea.
Hint, hint, me. I really am excited for Darius Crowley, the boss of Shadowfang Keep. This guy is really cool. He's an undead dude with double shotguns, and he's a magician. Like, this guy's really cool. Wears a magician hat, undead dude, double pistols all the way. It's basically like...
Thank you.
It's pretty dope.
I don't know how to say it.
Getting your names mixed up.
Am I getting them mixed up? Am I saying Crowley and Crowley should be Godfrey? I think that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, Godfrey's the boss. Crowley's the Worgen.
Lore Master strikes again.
Yeah. I have it all overlapping.
Listen, I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna stop saying anything anymore.
No, you're
Darius
kind of within your
Crowley-
right to do it. I'm just picking on you.
Let's give it over
Darius
to
Crowley
Eve.
is the one with the eye patch. He's a Worgen with an
Yeah.
eye patch, and he's super cool. That's how
All right,
you
Eve.
remember.
Go into the Ben Brode Q&A.
We were super happy because we saw 2 of our friends got their questions answered on the YouTube video where Ben Brode answers questions from him from Twitter.
It's a wired interview.
Andrew, our classic host from Andrew is Living from the Happy Hearthstone, had his question answered, and Spivey from 1600 Dust. So we're all like, you got on YouTube.
I know him. I know those.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
He used to be on our show. Yeah, so there wasn't anything hugely groundbreaking. It was just kind of some questions about if they're ever going to add more classic cards, because they kind of have to replace some of the ones that they're losing to
Hall of
what's
Fame.
it called again? Hall of Fame. Thank you. People are asking if they're ever going to make wild packs purchasable with in-game gold, because right now you can only find them on the website store. Excuse me.
Cold hard cash.
Yeah, you have to go to like the computer, to the internet, to go to the store on their site and buy things with money. There's nothing in game where you can just pick up some with gold. And they talked about how they don't like to have their UIs cluttered, which we knew is a really big thing with Blizzard. No sideboard coming for the tournament. They're like stressing, guys, please don't have your expectations out of whack for what tournament mode is gonna be. Like, it's not gonna have all these crazy things with it. Just like
He was
take it
very
down a
adamant
notch.
that this is not a tournament mode, but a tournament client.
Yeah.
Their semantics are hilarious.
It's like,
Hey,
why
Eve,
are we
explain-
so concerned with this one little ideal? It's like, dude, this is going to be a mode in the game. Just because you don't like that word doesn't make it not that.
Well, we better explain what a sideboard is first, because I bet you there's a contingency
Okay, I
of
can-
people that listen that
explain
have no
this.
idea what a sideboard is.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
So the sideboard, essentially in Yu-Gi-Oh, I might have Eve talk about the Magic the Gathering version, but sideboard in Yu-Gi-Oh would have been a 40 to 60 card limit of your total deck. That would be Hearthstone's 30 card. But on the side, you could have, in tournaments, it was not a multi-deck format. So players would only play one deck, and then you could bring a 15-card max extra set of cards that you could just have in a side pool.
You could swap
have-
it in and out.
Right, and you still have to abide by the restrictions similar to Hearthstone's, like 2 copies of this card and 1 copies of legendaries. You still have to abide by that, or card bans, or format things like standard versus wild. But the cards in the sideboard, you could switch between games, and you'd always play a best of 3, a best of 5, whatever it would be. So typically in that format, what you would do is you play like your standard deck. You just run it in the first game unless you knew and scouted your opponent. And then you're like, man, I really drew poorly, or I feel like I need more card draw against this guy, or I feel like I need more removal, or I need whatever.
You're
But with-
basically allowed to have a bunch of tech cards that you can
Yes.
put in your deck.
Now, it's a
So
little
you can
bit
tech
different.
against people.
It's
Yeah.
a little bit different in that format because there was no class synergy. It was all open, like, you can use any spell card you'd like. You can use any trap cards that you like. These were equivalent to, like, they basically delineated kind of like a secret would be like a trap, but you could sometimes play it on your opponent's turn and sometimes on your turn.
Yeah, so they didn't have limitations like you can't play mage cards in hunter decks.
Exactly.
But the same thing was for Magic the Gathering. Like, you could put a black card in a red deck. You just had to have the mana to play it.
Mhm.
Right.
So,
So
there's no
in-
limitations that way either.
It's very, very similar in other card games, but again, in other card games, they are not. I don't know of actually any other professional CCG card games where players are expected to bring multiple decks.
Yeah, never really thought about that. They do it in Magic, I'm pretty sure,
yeah,
don't they?
in Magic they bring more than one deck.
They bring more than
Really?
one deck.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know in Yu-Gi-Oh and in
But-
Pokemon competitive scene, you can only bring one deck and a side, and that's it.
Well, see, that's probably why they have the sidebar. That would be absolutely ridiculous to expect to win
Yeah.
any possible deck that you came up against without having options to a sidebar.
So keep that in mind, Hearthstone players. If you're looking as to why we don't have side
Um,
decks, it's like because you have multiple decks to play in the first place.
Right.
Here's something I was excited about, and both Grant and Rob will not care about at all. The question came up again, will there be a way that we can get old card backs that we have missed out on because we weren't there for the promotion or whatever else? And they were like, yes, we're looking into this, but we know people are going to get upset if like they were there since the beginning. So they had this super card back, from like November of the first year or something, and a whole bunch of people don't have it. That's like a point of pride. It's like, I'm this old player. I've been around for a while. So if we just go, hey, everybody, you can have this card back, those people are going to get angry. So we have to find this balance where you have to do something that's kind of hard enough to earn it, so it makes it so you earned that card back and it doesn't put those other people's nose out of joint, but also not something that's like grindy and not fun and like too far beyond, so the people will be like, oh, it's not worth it, I don't want that.
Well,
Or they'll do it or they'll be miserable.
you kind of glossed over it, but he made it sound like, yes, we're going to make them available. Like the way he answered that question, if you watch the video, it's not, yes, we're looking into it. It's like, yes, we're going to do that. We just haven't figured out how we're going to do it. Yeah, because like Eve said, they have to make it kind of like you have to prove your worth, show your dedication and your virtue and your loyalty to Hearthstone. But yeah, personally, I don't care. But in
I was
terms
gonna
of like,
say,
I'm not going to get all
To
butthurt.
counter this, they've been saying this for over a year and a half, and nothing's happened. So my lack
Well,
of faith in this
that's-
issue, it doesn't really matter.
But this is the thing. A lot of times they're asked questions and they say, we have no plans for that. And they have specifically said, we're looking into this, we're planning on this. So I know it's going to happen eventually.
Right,
But
but they
tournament
said the
mode, they
exact
did
same
not.
They
thing in
haven't
interviews over the
found-
last year and a half.
because they haven't found
It's the same
proper
thing
way
when
to
we
balance
asked about deck slots.
exactly what they're talking about.
It
We
took them
did
like
get
2.5
deck slots
years to
eventually,
give us
though.
deck slots.
Yeah, you have a point. Okay, one other thing. They're aware of the power and perceived depression of cube lock, and this is what I was going to talk to Grant about earlier in the pre-show. They know that at a lower tier of play, it's doing not that great. But with the higher tier of play, it's doing really well. So they like having these decks in the game that are harder to play, that have a higher skill cap, that are really demanding. You really have to think through those plays. You have to math out those defile turns. And they like having those kinds of decks, just like they liked Patron Warrior back in the day. And it took a long time for them to address it because they like having those high skill cap decks. But they're keeping an eye on it. Right now, it sounds like it's low enough in win rate that it's not something they're going to address immediately, but they're definitely keeping an eye out.
Yeah, the thing about cube lock is that if you think about it, it does take a little bit of skill to pilot, but where it really becomes skill intensive is when you play the mirror match. Mirror matches in cube lock are just like they're
Like
they're
Freeze
awful.
Mage back in the day?
They are awful. No, I think even that was easier because with cube lock, because it's so modular, it's because there's so many different things you can do with things like faceless manipulators and Taldaram, they can copy your stuff. And so you have to think, okay, if I copy this, what can they do to me? Or if I don't copy it, one of the things that situations I find myself in is like they put down their giant and I'm like, geez, I don't have an answer to that. Well, I guess I better faceless manipulator this giant. So then he has to make a decision whether do I trade or go face. And then you have all these like hard decisions to make. Do I kill it? Do I trade? Do I just go face because I'm going to get back health later? And all this stuff. And it's like a chess match every time you play that. So that's probably one of the ways that it keeps the win rate down is because of that. And sometimes it's just really draw dependent, but like it's super easy to blow that match up, like just blow that one up so badly if you're not careful. So you can lose that game in the mulligan if you're not careful. But
Yeah.
so I can see why they're not necessarily like, well, we want to pull the trigger on it because there's a lot of people who just don't play it right. I'm not even sure if I play it all right all the time, and I've hit legend with that deck, so I don't know.
There's two big things that I wanted to mention with this. One of them is a lot with what Grant was saying is the deck is like, in addition to being really modular and having a lot of decisions to be made in the mirror, as well as in the higher like combo decks that you're going up against in order to win, I would say that the other X factor is that the deck is way more resilient as a control deck towards silence because of faceless manipulators and because of Taldaram. Because you can cube something because it didn't cost you anything to play it because of the Skull of Minari or the Possessed Lackey. And then you cube it on turn 10 and then you can just copy it. So they might be able to silence or even hex one of the cubes, but you're still got one on there that's a copy. And generally speaking, if you Taldaram something like a cube or like a Void Daddy or even a Doomguard, it's better to have Taldaram do it in order to set up Gul'dan later because he's easier to die and faster to do that, especially even with something like N'Zoth. And so I think the reason that that's like it feels oppressive, right, is that, and in addition, I think a lot of the people in Team 5 are not so inclined towards adjusting this because of the N'Zoth shifting, and there's like a couple of other cards in the deck list that make its staying power even longer, like super
Mistress
big
of Mixtures.
Right, exactly.
N'Zoth and Mistress are the two big ones.
Those are pretty
And the new
core.
expansion, right?
Exactly.
That's the other thing he mentioned is we have a new expansion coming out. So we'll wait and see what happens with that.
Right.
It might go away.
Yeah.
It might,
Now, the other thing,
See
too,
what
that Blizzard always says, and I want to reiterate this because a lot of players don't really feel like this is something because they're all, like, hyper-competitive or, like, just really salty lower-tier players. Like, you have those type of people that are, like, in the whining category, I guess you could say. Those are the two ends, right? You have the really skilled players that are like, these are the high-skill issues with this deck. Or then you have the low-skill people who's like, this deck is so busted I can't do anything. I have no creativity. It sucks. It feels bad. But, like, we don't really talk about the feeling bad, emotional almost visceral response to something that Blizzard said
Mhm.
is a very core piece to how they adjust game balance. And it
Yes.
doesn't matter how good the deck is. It just matters how visceral your feelings are when you lose or when you win with it. And in addition to that, Q block stifles a lot of player creativity because it's such a narrow deck that anything within the mid-range category or anything within the early game category has to be extremely fast and explosive to even be able to compete in the mid game or close out the game really quickly. And there's not a whole lot of decks that can do that outside of Paladin right now. And Paladin is the only class with two very similar archetypes in how they play in order to do something like this. So this is probably what they're looking at.
Are there even any actual competitive mid-range decks on the meta right now? I haven't seen any that I thought like. But is that considered a mid-range deck or
What
a
would you
control
call
deck,
the
though?
rogue decks?
Control of the sort, combo control,
Mhm.
something like that. I mean, like if you think
Damn
about
sure.
it, like what mid-range
Dragon Priest?
Paladin, like when Ongoro came out, mid-range Paladin was an actually viable deck that was good. You could take that deck to Legend if you played it right. And that deck cannot win right now. That deck, at least in its older form, like functioning along the same lines of play. There's a Lanessa deck that Ike HS put out that I like a lot. And I've beaten some Warlocks with it, but I almost feel like I won because they had a slightly worse draw than I did, and I played the deck well. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like the deck is strong enough on its own to really contest a bunch of Doom Guards flying at your face.
Beef Squatch mentions that Dude Paladin is a mid-range deck, which I guess you could argue, but I feel like Dude Paladin is more of like a very durable turn 1 to turn 3 and very fast. And then you explode on turn 4 with your game closer with Call to Arms. And then you have combos for later turns for reload. So, I mean...
Yeah, see, I kind of agree with that because I've felt a lot of the times that Mysterious Challenger makes the Paladin in Wild a mid-range deck. Even though it also feels very aggro, just the fact that you have these key cards for the mid-game and can close you out in the end game makes it more of a mid-game than an aggro.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I think
the mid-range
Dude Paladin's
decks are just...
a token deck.
Yeah,
Dude Paladin's a straight-up token deck.
It's just tokens.
It's not an aggro deck, it's a token deck. Which
but
could...
does that doesn't exclude it from being a mid-range deck?
No, it doesn't. But like, if you were to like hard classify it, it would be tokens because that's what you're doing basically.
Yeah.
I would even say while Call to Arms is not strict tokens because they're not the little Silverhand recruits, it
Stuff that
functions
comes
like a
out of
token
it.
deck. Just like, can you imagine if Druid had that capability with their buffs right now? It would be wretched. You know what I mean? Because they can almost do that now. So, but we call it a token deck. We call them tokens, even though none of their minions are the same. So,
all right, we need to keep moving.
Yeah.
So,
yes, moving on.
Eve, I think there's 2 things left that we need to.
Yeah, well, they
blast
talked about Pepe. Now, when I say this, I'm going to give a disclaimer. There is a very, very cute bird that they have in World of Warcraft called Pepe, and it's just the most adorable thing. And it has a whole bunch of like different hats it wears, and people can like find it in World of Warcraft. And they've been talking about putting it in Hearthstone because it's just dang adorable. It's like a little, I think he's yellow.
He's orange.
Yeah.
Is he orange?
I want an expansion called Pepe's Dream, where they go into the dreams of Pepe, and it's just like freaking weird, weird, crazy stuff.
It's like the cow.
Oh
It's gonna
my
be
gosh.
like Mark Chagall painting a la Warcraft. There we go. Boom.
That's amazing, Grant. You have an amazing mind. They talked about people asking for increased deck sizes. Now, this is what I really agree with, is that right now, when you have a deck of 30, you're trying to pull your cards, and you're trying to pull your cards, and sometimes you just never do. Can you imagine if you had twice as many cards?
Oh.
You would never pull your cards. Like, this is why 30 is the perfect size, people. I know you want to be able to put all your favorite cards in your deck, but trust me, you would never see them. I have played 60-card deck Magic the Gathering and just wanted to play all these amazing cards that I put in my deck. And unless you have like a 2-hour game, you never see them.
Right.
So
let me tell
trust
you
me when I
this.
say they found the right size.
And
As
in a
somebody-
60-card deck, 20 of it's mana, so it's not like
This
you're
is
really
true.
playing with 60 cards.
That's boring as
That's
well.
okay.
Mhm.
As somebody that's played both Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon competitively at a very low level, guaranteed. But when you're looking at decks in these, I played a lot of tournament with Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot less with Pokemon, but Pokemon is one of the games where they don't have mana, but they have energy that you have to use in order to do abilities on your cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have trainer cards that are kind of like your tutor cards or your spells. And then you also have in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have like how many cards you can play per turn is restricted by requirements to play them rather than like by using mana. It's like you can only play one creature per turn. You can only play higher creatures by sacrificing lower creatures. You can only play one spell per turn, one trap per turn, or something like that. So something like that is how they restrict it. They have a limit, lowest point where you can play 40 cards and 60 cards is the bracket. You will never see a card deck that goes over 40 because it's that important to thin your decks. So in Hearthstone, if you could play 60, if you could play 100, in Pokemon, they were like, you could play up to as many cards as you want in a deck. They'll never restrict it. But how many people do you see doing that? Zero, because it's so important to have small decks that you want to play exactly what you want to play and you want to draw specific stuff. All right, let's keep moving. We have Peter Whalen talking about Enrage. Grant, did you read this one?
Yes, I did. So basically, long and short of it is they're going to get rid of Enrage as a keyword. And the reasoning was they just don't use it. It's not I think there are 9 total cards in the entire collection that use the word Enrage, and they see almost no play except for maybe Gromash, Hellscream. And I think Bloodhoof Brave saw a little bit of play in Taunt Warrior for a while. But basically, they're like, what we're going to do is we're going to recode it because basically I think they're thinking of new players. They see Enrage. What does that do? There's not enough cards that say Enrage for them to merit a special keyword for what happens. Basically, they're just going to retext the cards saying when this minion takes damage, gains +3. So as long as it's damaged, which actually makes more sense because a lot of new players don't know that if you heal Gromash Hellscream up to full health after he's been hurt, his attack goes back down to 4.
Yeah.
So
and that's not intuitive.
And that's definitely not intuitive. So it's like one of those things that you only would know if you've seen it before. But if the text reads, and if the text reads has +6 attack when damaged or has damage or whatever they're going to word it.
As long as it's damaged. Because then otherwise you get into does it get more attack every time it's damaged?
Right.
Does it get more and more and more attack? So that's something that's not intuitive either. So this is one of the times when actually writing more words on the card actually helps rather than just putting Enrage on it.
Right, and they're only going to do it for 9 cards because they're not really looking at adding any Enrage cards to the list. They basically were saying, nobody really plays them. Nobody really does anything to it. I'd be interested to know if they kind of get rid of that quest too. You know what I mean?
Yes, they actually said they are going to. As soon as the word goes out, the quest will go away. The one that says play X amount of creatures with Enrage and Warrior.
Which is fine.
It makes me a little sad though, because especially from World of Warcraft, Enrage, the word kind of has so much meaning for Warrior that I kind of wish they'd just make better cards with Enrage on them.
I wonder if they
Rather
just
than
make
why.
a
You know
spell
what?
called
Nobody
Enrage.
plays these cards. Well, nobody plays these cards. They're not really used throughout the entire time we've been playing Hearthstone, so let's just kind of retire it and not really make any more. I mean, they haven't said they're not going to make any more, but the fact that they're doing this to the word kind of says to me in the future there's probably not going to be that many, if any.
And they can do cool stuff with an Enrage
It's kinda
similar
sad.
mechanic like Frothing Berserker, but they don't have to say it like it's Enrage. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
that's true. Whenever this takes damage, yeah.
Mhm.
Hit me, get angry,
It
get
does
strong.
something.
Orc.
Well, just like whenever Acolyte of Pain takes damage, you draw a card.
Right.
Right.
fine.
This
PC
is
Gamer
true.
sat
Good
down with
point.
Ixar, aka Dean Ayala, and revealing that all of the odd and even cards have been revealed.
Dun dun dun.
We're not going to see any more. Are you guys
None.
surprised by this? Because I was.
I was a little bit, yeah.
I
Definitely.
thought that
Thought
there was
there
going
would
to be
be at least a couple
maybe
more.
a max of 10 more. I think that was probably what I was thinking. I was like, they're probably not going to have much more than 10 more cards. If more, I was thinking more in the range of like maybe like 2 or 3 more class cards, 2 or 3 more in the neutral set, and that would have been it. So it doesn't surprise me that much because I feel like this odd and even is not powerful based off the cards you give it. It's based off the legendaries you build around. I think that's what the core of the mechanic is going to be. And
Right.
Yeah,
they
I
said
mean,
that Echo
the
was
more
a
that they
big
made,
staple of the set.
The more that they made, the more that they would have to keep out of Arena, because they already said that they're not
Bingo.
putting in Arena all of these different cards. That would kind of suck.
Right.
But, I mean, we have to wait and see, because we thought all of the Prince cards were crap. Like, I think every single one of us was like, these cards are crap, and then we were proven wrong with almost every single one of them. So
Every one of
I
them
will-
has seen play. Yes.
I will wait to see what decks turn out before I say it's not that great, but I don't think that there was enough support for this to be like a ground shaking new
I think this could
archetype.
still be good, like the Keleseth stuff, right? Like,
Mhm.
you only make the Keleseth card reviewing mistake once, and then you don't do it anymore. So,
Yeah, you just go, I don't know. I have no opinion.
I predict
No
that those
idea.
those start a game cards and the even odd stuff that goes with it. I predict that those cards will see a lot of play the first couple of weeks because everybody's going to be trying to find the deck that works because the effect of those cards is so strong and it's immediate. And those two factors by themselves, I think, are going to make some actually viable decks.
and like we
We'll
said
see.
last week, Grant, if they're making Echo a main mechanic, you can play one card multiple times, and if it's odd or even, you just slot it in. Like, anything that says Echo should be a major consideration in the deck building stages because
Right.
of how powerful they can be when you have limited card options. So let's keep moving on. We also have a further announcement here that he had a question from the interviewer from PC Gamer saying, is there a single charge minion in the set? And he says, no. That is a
Charge
verbatim
minion
quote,
patch
by the
for
way.
them.
Including
No
the deep breath.
patches. Nothing like it.
But there will be charge
Yay?
in the form of Rush. So keep in mind, that is something that we can look for. Witchwood card reveal schedule actually was released, like we said at the top, but we know now that there will be 55 total cards coming from the 27th through the 8th. And we have 12 cards right now. We'll be covering the 2 that we missed last week today. And that would give us a total of 67 out of 135 cards. That would mean that between the stream that we're seeing on the 26th and the stream likely that is not announced yet, but that I'm predicting is going to happen at the end of all of these card reveals sometime on between April 9th and a little bit after, you'll see a second reveal stream of the final cards and or final card dumps on their Facebook page that you can go check out before the expansion launches. That means over half of these cards are going to be posted in just 2 reveal streams and a card dump at the end. So
Oh man, so
we're
much
going to
work
be
for us.
really busy. And again, disclaimer, we're not covering all of the cards on Velen's Chosen. We are not. It is too much. If you want to listen to 4.5-hour episodes, go check out Steve Lubitz
Happy
and
Hearthstone.
Andrew Brown covering it on the Happy Hearthstone, where they are losing every waking hour of sleep that they have to this expansion. So you guys can go check that out there. We have the. Let's see. Oh, Eve, please talk about the daily quests coming.
Right, so starting March 26th at 11:59 p.m. PDT and ending April 9th at 11:59 p.m. PDT, you will get 1 card pack per daily quest done. So if you save your quests and you have 3 on the first day of this, you will get 3 packs, 1 per quest that you do. They are going to be disabling the play a friend for 80 gold quest during this event, and then it'll come back once this event is over.
And the card
Oh,
pack you
Reddit's
can
gonna be
get-
mad.
The card packs that you can get is Unguro, Frozen Throne, Catacombs, or Witchwood.
And it seems like it's going to be just kind of like random.
It's a dice
And
roll.
You can bank
get.
your quests. You can bank them.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, we would talk about it, but by the time you're listening to this, outside of the live stream, won't matter because you can't prepare for it anymore. So, if you prepare for it, good for you. But if not, you can
This is
bank
what
them.
I think, Rob. This is what I think. They're going to give you 3. If you've emptied them all, the beginning of this
I don't think so.
event, they're just going to give you 3 quests.
On the 26th, they're just going to log you in with 3 quests? I don't think so.
Yeah, like however many quests that you have empty, they're just going to give you 3.
I'm still going to save it. Long hair, don't
Well,
care.
Go ahead, absolutely. But I would be interested to know because that's what I think is going to happen.
All right, before we get into the deck, we got to talk about 2 new Echo cards. The first one, as I transition us here, is Warpath. It is a 2-mana Echo card spell in the common category for warriors. Deal 1 damage to all minions with Echo. Basically, cost
Whirlwind.
1 more than Whirlwind. Do what Whirlwind does, and you can do it as much as you'd like in a turn that you have mana for. The max that you can do this is on turn 10. You can do it 5 times. More likely, this is something that I can see actually being really good for an Arcane Giants warrior in Wild. That was my immediate reaction to this card.
Patron warrior in Wild.
I can see that being good.
Frothing Berserker?
No, that warrior deck that we were playing around at the beginning of the expansion, Rob, this is one of the pieces that was missing. It didn't have good early mass removal. You had to wait minimum until you could get to Brawl, and you could run a Whirlwind, but that didn't do much to a lot of the Paladin decks. So this
you
could
can
be
do
a
it
really good
twice.
early card. You could take down Murlocs with this deck or this card. You could take down a bunch
Yeah,
of
but
little
we're
wimpy
losing
dudes.
fishes.
You could do all
We
kinds
need
of stuff.
some other tools first for me to be convinced.
You're not losing it in Wild.
True. But who knows? Well, fishes was what with Whirlwind. It was a 4-mana combo.
5.
Yes.
Well, 4 mana with Whirlwind.
Was it-
Yeah. 5 with
Yeah.
Garrosh's hero power.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't do
So,
it
I mean-
with a Primordial Drake.
It's just a slightly different way of doing the same thing. So they do need some more early removal, or else they.
Yeah.
I don't know if a warrior
I will
deck
say
will be
it's
at least like what
interesting.
we've been thinking about.
It's interesting because this is going to go in even warrior, which means you can't have tank up with this card. And this is not a tool that you can use for odd warrior with the quest. So this is an even warrior where you get a 1-mana hero power. So in my opinion, even warrior is very, very, very slow. You lack a lot of your good tools in the classic set outside of execute. So I think this with execute pairs really well. But
The entire meta via Rob May just became binary. You have even warrior or odd warrior, even hunter or odd hunter, even warlock or odd warlock.
right.
No,
That's
nothing
right.
ever has any fun, colorful names. On or off, even or odd.
I will say Warpath is very good
Right.
with a deck that doesn't care about odd or even, though. This is pretty good tool.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I'm going to give the next card
Yeah.
to Eve
Okay,
because it's a rogue card. and
Face
that makes sense.
Collector. Face Collector is so creepy looking. Like,
Cove from Avatar.
It looks
yeah,
just like it.
It
Has
does.
a whole bunch of heads. Yeah, so legendary rogue minion. 3 mana 2/2. Echo. Battlecry, add a random legendary minion to your hand. Now, it's 3, so I mean Shadow Step exists. Shadow Step is a thing. And we kind of talked before about how Rogue is sort of already stealing your stuff, already taking things out of your deck and from your class and things like that. So they've already played around with putting cards into their hand and their deck that's not necessarily synergistic, and they don't really seem to care. They're probably looking more for spells when they do that, though. Those are the things that are the most useful to them. So this is going to be guaranteed to be a minion.
Yeah.
And we know that there are a lot of legendaries out there that are not great, that are not awesome. So is this something? I mean, it's cheap. It's only 3 mana. But is this something that you want to use a turn to do over and over and over again and put a bunch of legendary cards into your hand?
This is
Is
a
Rogue-
super fun card. Super fun card.
Yes, absolutely. But it's
And
a
has-
2/2.
Hmm.
That's
Grant, what do you think?
That's a pretty weak body.
Well, let's look at like some of the other cards that have done stuff like this, like Shaku. We all said Shaku's crap. Shaku ended up being pretty common in like the
But
The Tempo
Shaku is
Rogue.
random card, right?
random card from your opponent's class. So probably a little bit even almost would say it depends, I guess, on how many cards are in the pool in terms of sets, but it could have been anything, you know. You didn't know what you were going to get, and yet people still played it.
But
Sometimes you get
class
it dead.
cards, yeah, I mean, like, go with me here. Class cards tend to be a little better than neutral cards, right? Like,
Yep.
sometimes there's crappy ones, but a lot
King
of the time, the
Crush?
class cards are made to be a bit better.
Anomalous?
So if you're taking it from that pool of only class cards, rather than all legendary minions, which includes all the neutral ones as well. I don't know which one I would rather have.
Well, I mean, and then they have like I know it, like at least Starseeker, the original one, at least version 1.0, she would fill your hand with legendaries, and that wasn't so bad. People played that in Control Warrior. I mean, it's one of those things where it could be feast or famine. You know, I don't know that. I think it's either going to be awesome or it's going to be crappy. But it's a cheap card. That's the other thing is, what is it? What's the cost on it? Is it two
Three.
mana? 3 mana. 3 mana is not bad for what it does. So if you pull, you know, a big giant, beefy legendary out of it, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, you get a Ysera or a Lich King or something like that. It could be worth it. The problem is it's very tempo negative. So I guess if you want to have I guess the thing is for it to be worth it, there had to be like some kind of big payoff. And the only question I would wonder is the gamble worth it at that point in time in the game? And if you can shadow step it and bring it back in your hand, it might be awesome. I don't know. Late game card, it could actually generate some potential value. So like you top deck that last 5 cards in your hand, you play that and you're like, oh sweet, you have a big fatty that I didn't have before. It has potential. So
they had a really interesting clip when they were showcasing the card where they played Face Collector into Face Collector on turn 10, and they got Zola the Gorgon, and they used Zola the Gorgon to get a gold one and threw that back in their hand. So instead of playing Face Collector 3 times, they played it twice and got back to do it again. So it's just some fun stuff. And there was 2 things I was thinking about Face Collector. The main thing was that with Shadow Step, I think this is a very good control late game card. Because there was something really interesting, like you were saying, Grant, with Sonya. You don't even have to run a lot of times I've noticed that the backstab becomes pretty useless late game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like an extra card that doesn't do much. I'm just like, well, maybe I can play, face collector into Sonya, into another face collector, and then just like backstab one. And then now I have a 1/1 version of it, and I can play it for 4 mana twice. And just keep doing that. And the other cool thing, too, that you could do here is, let's say you play it twice. You can also play this with Valir the Hollow, and you have a backstab, and you can backstab 2 of them with Sonya on the board.
Yeah.
That could be some crazy good staying power late game. So I think this is not a card that you're going to want to necessarily look for a tempo card. Like you said, Grant, it's a tempo negative card. This is not a tempo-orientated card.
Yeah,
but,
oriented card, yeah.
I really like the card at its core, and I feel like this could be fun enough and good enough staying power, but I think I want to see more legendaries that we're going to be getting in the set if it increases the overall usability pool for Rogue as a whole.
Right.
Because anytime they say legendary, it adds more randomness, but more diversity within what you can get. Because if you're saying discover, then you can't get stuff outside of your class. You could only get neutrals and stuff inside Rogue. Now, this opens up options for you to get, like, whatever. Like, you could get Antonidas off of this. That would be nuts.
Right.
So.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing for me. Like, when I think about the most fun I ever have in Hearthstone, and people ask me the last couple, I've guessed on a few different shows, and they ask me what's my favorite card. And a lot of times I say my favorite card is Unstable Portal, because I always think back to the days when Tempo Mage, the original Tempo Mage, was the thing with Flame Wakers and Unstable Portal. It's like, man, there's nothing more fun than like dice rolling that card, putting it down, and voila, you have a Dr. Boom in your hand that you can play on turn 5 or turn 4, depending on, I can't remember how much it was discounted. And that's just really fun, and you get a lot of giggles and joy out of just doing that. So this card kind of does that in a lot of ways, right? Except it just limits the pool rather than just any random card like Unstable Portal was. It limits it to the legendary. So you can probably do the math and say, I have an X% chance of getting something reasonable out of this, for 3 mana.
Yeah.
And if you can shadow step it or replay it, or which Rogue bounce it back like Rogue wants to do, I think it could be good. It could be a nice inclusion if you don't know what to put in on a 20. You have 29 cards and you need a good card that does something. I don't know. I could see.
On that note, I would
play
it if it said make the legendary minion like 2 cheaper or 3 mana cheaper.
I wish it did. It'd probably be busted at that point in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
But
okay,
anyway,
then we go into the deck of the week, and I have a bumper for you.
Isn't she scrumptious? She's my revolutionary, non-pollutionary mechanical wonder.
Well, it is impressive, isn't it?
But what's it do?
The new hotness.
The new hotness, indeed. Grant, talk to us about Mind Blast Priest while I try to figure out how I'm going to get this on the screen.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about the new spicy priest that I've been playing this week. So basically, after I hit Legend and Wild, I'd been running Big Priest, so I felt like I was getting pretty comfortable with Priest as a class, and I had about probably 30 or some odd wins that I had to achieve before I could get Golden Anduin. So I was like, geez, what deck do I want to play? But I remember that I had saw somebody a couple weeks ago post a list saying, thanks Zetalot for this awesome list that you posted. I ran it up to Legend, blah, blah, blah. I thought, man, that deck looks interesting. So I looked at it, and it's got a lot of the usual suspects in it. But what I noticed about this deck is that it was running Velen in it, And I think, okay, any deck that runs Velen, I'm interested because that means it's probably running Mind Blast, which is the 2-cost card that does 5 damage. But when you have Velen, it does 10. So I'm like, okay, what is it? So before I get into it, let me read you the list real quick.
I got it on the screen.
A lot of standard fare.
Live show.
Oh, yeah, live show people. So you get the benefit of showing up. 2 Northshire Clerics. 2 Northshire Clerics, 2 Power Word Shields, 2 Mind Blasts, 2 Netherspite Historians, 2 Shadow Visions, 1 Shadow Word Pain, 2 Gilded Gargoyle, 2 Shadow Word Death, 2 Duskbreaker, 2 Greater Healing Potion, 2 Draconid Operatives, 2 Dragonfire Potions, 1 Skulking Geist, 1 Prophet Velen, 2 Psychic Screams, 1 Primordial Drake, 1 Shadow Reaper Anduin, and 1 Alex Straza. So that list is the reason I wanted to talk about it today. Is one, it's a cool list. It's super fun to play. It's really effective, but it's very different from a lot of what we're seeing, even in terms of like decks that tend to run dragons, because you're running dragons in this deck, not because you're necessarily worried about just having bodies and playing that particular game, although you can.
What's
you're running
Gilded Gargoyle?
Gilded Gargoyle is a 3-cost card that is a 2/2 body that when it dies, it puts a coin in your hand, which is actually the win con of the deck.
Oh.
Basically what you're doing is, to win with this deck, before I get going with what I was saying, is you want to get your opponent to 20 health or less, and then you drop, on turn 10, you drop Velen, Mind Blast, coin, second Mind Blast, and you hit them for 20 and they're dead. So it doesn't matter if they have any Void Daddies up or any Void Babies or whatever. They die. Boom, 20 health.
So
Very
really
similar.
Need that coin.
You do, and it's actually not hard to get. It's actually surprisingly easy to keep. That's the first primary win condition that like when you think about what the deck really wants to do, that's one of the big things it wants to do. But with you'll set it up Alex Straza depending, and then you do your Velen turn and go off and win. If you need to use your coin earlier, like say sometimes you're playing against a paladin and they're building a pretty darn big board, you have the coin, you want to use it for the Mind Blast, but you know that if you can get a Dragonfire Potion off a turn earlier, you're going to have a lot more survivability because Paladin's starting to get a little bit scary. You can use it for then too. You can use Shadow Reaper Anduin, especially with the coin, to help you get more pings off with the hero power. Because sometimes it's really nice to go hero power, coin, hero power, Mind Blast. You can get a lot of damage in if you really think about it and you plan ahead. But yeah, so the deck it seems dragon centric, but really you use the dragons as just another board clear. Really, you're running dragons so that you can run Duskbreakers for the most part. Primordial Drake so you can run a board clear, because this deck does struggle a little bit against the faster decks. Like it'll struggle against Paladin, especially Murloc Paladin, and it'll struggle against Mage. But the good news is both of those classes have a lot of 3 health minions. So that's why you run Duskbreakers, and that's why you run Netherspite Historians. Because your best draw, like almost all the time, especially with a faster deck, is Northshire Cleric, Netherspite Historian, and a Duskbreaker. If you can have those 3 in your hand, like right out of the gate, you're in good shape. Because a lot of times, I would say at least half the time, Netherspite Historian gives you another Duskbreaker. And if you have more than one Duskbreaker turn, if you can get 3 Duskbreakers in a game, Paladin's going to have a super rough time with you. And Eve's like, oh no, she's imagining it, PTSD. So
Yeah.
if the thing is though, if you don't get the Duskbreakers, you just lose. It's kind of an unfortunate win condition where if you have those earlier board clears, which you need against the faster decks like Mage and Paladin, then
Because
you're
don't
fine.
run Shadow Word Horror.
Right, there's no Shadow Word Horror. Now, I'm sure there's probably editions out there that run Shadow Word Horror because they're very good, and it's an excellent spell. It just depends, I guess, how you want to run it, because I think there are some controllers. I think I've seen some that run it. Are you going to say, well, I don't have Duskbreakers, so can I sub in horrors? I guess you can. I'm sure you could.
Is it going to be as good? Probably not.
No, and the thing I like about it better is because with the amount of mage on the ladder, having a body that does the removal as opposed to a spell is way safer. It's so much more comforting to go, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a counter spell secret you got up there. But you know what? It don't matter because boom, Dustbreaker, fool. So
Not only that, but I put Dire Wolves into my Paladin decks just to raise things above so that you can't kill them with Shadow Word Horror.
Mhm.
But their butts are still small and
Mhm.
Duskbreaker still kills them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and in most card games, removal on a stick is very often better than just straight up removal, right?
You can also
That's a hard
Shadow
question.
Visions
You have
for a pain and get multiple
Yes.
pains for single copies if they're not going wide, which I can see that being a very big piece of how you want to mulligan. You can argue that if you pull a mulligan where you have Shadow Visions and pain, a lot of times you might throw away the pain and just get the Shadow Vision so you can get multiple ones throughout the game if you're going up against early stuff.
Yeah, it just depends on, you kind of just have to know your matchups. I could see that certainly being the lesser of two evils. I usually keep pain when I have it, especially like against Paladin. I see a knife juggler, it's getting pain, boom. Against a Murloc Paladin, I might save it one turn, depending. If they drop what's the little dude that's the 1/2, but he gets an attack every time you play a Murloc? That's a
Tidecaller.
Is it Tidecaller? Tidecaller.
Tidecaller.
So the Murloc Tidecaller, he
I'd say
you want to
between
get rid of him.
chieftains,
He can
no?
get out of control pretty quick, but then you have to decide if he has a War Leader in his hand, because War Leader is way better to get rid of than the Tidecaller. It just depends, you know what I mean? It's hard to know. But you kind of read hands, kind of have to look at what your opponent's touching when they're playing these Murlocs, because sometimes they'll play like the early little Murlocs and you'll see them mousing over a card and just kind of leaving it there. Sometimes that means that's the War Leader. You know what I mean? So in that case, hand reading can really help you there or hurt you.
So
you don't keep gargoyles ever.
Yeah.
You don't keep them. You're more than likely to get them. You usually get them at some point in time early in the game, but you don't keep them. So
Grant, I was gonna say the most cuttable card to me looks like one of your Psychic Screams you could cut for something early game. If you're running into a lot of Paladins, you could probably cut one, if not both of these, for something to interact with them.
I could see a world where you could probably cut a Psychic Scream, although I will say that Dude Paladin refills so often that I find myself using it. I found myself using it a lot. So you'd have to cut it for maybe like a Shadow Word Horror, something that can get rid of minions.
That's what I mean.
And that I could see a world where that would be good. Or maybe cutting a Dragonfire Potion because of all the priests that's on the ladder that does run dragons. Some of those matchups are a little hard.
Style rather than like what card you should put in there. Yeah.
Yeah, like Summoner Priest is really a hard matchup because of that reason. Spiteful Summoner, yeah.
Okay.
Because they pull out stuff and they have a board really quick, and half of it you can't kill. You know what I mean? You can't do anything to it. So unless you have
a death.
Yeah. So I think I would rather cut a Dragonfire Potion before I cut a Psychic Scream, which honestly it's getting you ready for the next meta, so it should be fine. Primordial Drake is super good in the meta, because priests can't really deal with it unless it's a Void Ripper kind of deck or something like that. The biggest problems I find is like when priest is running, what is it? The tiny potion that drops everybody's health, and then they Shadow Word Horror your deck. Pint-sized potion, and I mean that's a problem, but you just have to play around it. But what I like about this deck is it does have a lot of removal. It's kind of minion-centric in removal, but it really solves the problem of being able to reach over the Void Daddies, and it solves the problem of being able to take down a lot of late game kind of decks that really want to like get the big fatties out, and you're like, I'm not worried about it because you're dead now. It struggles against Druid a lot. Because Druid can armor up and they can get way out of range if you let them. It struggles against the few times you'll see a warrior where they get 35 armor or something like that, because you can't drop their health with Alexstrasza. You can't drop their armor health with Alexstrasza. So, basically,
warlock killer, right? I would say warlock.
Yeah, this is sort of an anti-warlock deck, but honestly, earlier this week I was beating everything with it. I was like, man, I just don't feel like there's a weak matchup. But then I hit a patch in the meta where I think people were playing either. I think I was playing worse and they were playing better, or maybe everybody was playing better than me. I don't know. But this deck felt like it was very draw dependent. Like you really had to get those early cards. I noticed that the games that I had Duskbreakers, I almost always won. And the games that I didn't get Duskbreakers, I almost always lost. Similarly, I always found that when I was playing, I had to get Velen or Anduin. Anduin or Velen had to kind of show up somewhere around turn 10. You know what I mean? They have to show up in that prime spot because
8 to 12.
Yeah, you want them to show up because if they don't, like the games where Anduin or Velen were in the bottom 5 cards of the deck, like it just started getting really scary, and I think my win rate dropped pretty significantly, especially against Warlock, because Warlock can start duplicating stuff and start using Gul'dan. If they get Gul'dan out and you haven't really got them down, they're just going to get out of range, and your Alexstrasza is not going to really do anything to them. So you got to kind of watch it. So it unfortunately, the unfortunate thing about this deck is, again, it's very. I guess maybe you could say this about all decks, but you kind of have to draw the pieces within a certain time frame, or you're kind of just SOL. I think that it's very on the weak side towards like Druid, but there's not a lot of Druids, so no big deal. But Mage can have a field day with it if you're not careful. If a Mage gets the weapon, if they get I'm blanking on names today, but if they get their weapon,
Alaneth,
they get Alaneth, you lose. Because they can ignore what you're doing. Because you really won't be able to put threats out as fast as they can burn your face down.
Right.
I think that Priest really shines with the control where they just outlast you until you've exhausted everything and you've got nothing left. So when they go up against other decks that just have a lot of endgame and have a lot of value, going on and on and on, then that's where they start to struggle. But things like the aggro decks where they exhaust all of their stuff in the first part of the game, if you're able to survive that, then you're probably going to win. If you can just stay alive.
And in fact, you're actually right, Eve. I'm glad you said that because you reminded me that in the in particular in the Paladin and in the what was the other one? In the Paladin and the Zoo, like if you play a Zoolock, and there's Zoo on the ladder. And in fact, I think that's what shout out to Samurai Flea for hitting Legend, but I think he hit it with Zoo, right? Am I mistaken?
It was with the
You know what, I
Apothecary
can't
Zoo,
remember.
I think. With the buff.
Okay, so it was a Zoo list. Against Zoo and Paladin, so like really board centric decks, your goal is like you might want to think about hoarding that coin because I want to go off on the combo, and you do get to do it sometimes, but really you just have to outlast them. You're going for value. Everything's value. Everything's just take care of their board. Don't let them get a chance to get a bunch of 3/3s on the board. Yeah, you might have to Psychic Scream a Tareem, but you're just trying to like slow them down, like just make it to where they've exhausted their call to arms, they've exhausted their fight against the darkness kinds of cards, things and all that stuff, or stand against darkness, all that stuff. You want to exhaust it, and then they can only put one minion at a time, and by then you usually have some way to just kind of plink, take it down, or you can ping them down with Anduin or something like that, depending. That's really your goal, not so much combo. So if you have to use the coin to keep that goal in mind, then it's fine. It's worth it.
Even just saving
the
your
worst
coins for
is
Anduin pings is fine.
And that's another thing about the deck is if you know that, it makes you really think about not frittering away your coins or frittering away your cheap cost minions or spells, because sometimes those cards really, really come in handy for like Anduin pings to really just get them down, so that you can just kill them with the combo or maybe just with a nice Anduin turn. It's a lot like how you used to play Raza Priest. You would do that with Raza Priest. Like, well, these cards aren't really.
That sounds familiar.
They're not worth much in and of themselves, but where they're really valuable is you can use them for pings or to like activate pings. So.
And then how much damage are you doing with your hero power when Velen is out?
4, which is another thing you can do. I had a game against a Priest where they used Draconid Operatives to take Velen and an Anduin, and so the next thing I know, it's like a Spiteful Summoner Priest, and all of a sudden they're playing my game against me. I'm like, what? How'd you? What? You can't do that. And they're playing Velen, and like they had a turn where Velen stuck, and I couldn't get rid of him, and it was just like 4 damage 4 or 5 times, and that was it.
That was over.
That doesn't happen very often, but it.
I mean,
They
it's
look
the
at my
typical
board
thing. If
of
Velen
tutus
sticks, the
and they're
game's
like,
over.
what do I steal? What do I take? This all looks like stuff that I could have if I wanted. That's what the priest is, like a buffet spread out in front of them. They love stealing your stuff.
Maurice,
Like
get me
90%.
my caviar. Let's have a party.
Time to shoot you in the face with caviar darts. So,
Hit me, I'm open.
they left. Okay.
All right.
So yeah, that's the deck in the week, and we have the list posted in our Discord. We have the list in our show notes. If you have any questions about how to play the deck, because I ran the deck from 5 to 2. So
And
if
then from
I
2
think
to 5.
and then 2 back to 5. So it had a disagreeable symmetry to it. But I think it's a good deck. I think that if you get good draws, you're going to win. If you get bad draws, you're going to lose. It's a deck that doesn't recover well from a bad opening draw.
Yeah.
And
If
some
you're looking
decks
for something
can.
new, something different.
But if you
It
hate
is getting
Warlock,
kind of stale out there, and you hate
if you
Warlock.
hate Warlock. I
And
don't
you
hate
should.
Warlock.
You should
don't
all
hate Warlock, but-
Speaking of hating
Spoken
Warlock,
like a true paladin.
Speaking of hating Warlock, I have a little anecdote for you guys this week. I wanted to save this for a good moment when we're talking about hating Warlock this week. You guys ready?
Insert now. Go.
when it comes up again, because
All right.
it will.
'Cause it
So
will.
I was playing Warlock against a Warlock in
Mhm.
the casual game mode for a quest, because I was kind of like, I just needed to get Warlock wins. Okay, so playing Warlock against Warlock.
I
This
don't
is
need excuse.
this is not the typical Warlock list though. This is that crazy spiteful Warlock list that runs a ton of demons and the Skull of Minari and double Twisting Nether and Spiteful Summoners, with like 2 Void Walkers and Despicable Dreadlords and even a Cabal Cabal Trafficker, like for more demons. Like it's pretty nutty, and even runs an Abyssal Enforcer in it. Like it's really fun. And I'm going up against a Control Warlock that even runs the Stonehill Defenders and a Ren the Disciple, and I think they ran 1 Siphon and 2 Twisting Nethers. So anyways, we're playing this game, and we're grinding back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I realize this game's going to go to fatigue about turn 6, and I'm like, okay, I'm done tapping this game. Because I was like, I'm already I'm on the turns where it's like 1, 1, 2, 2, and if I tap one more time, I'm on the back foot, right? And they play Ren the Disciple, and I mean, I'm able to silence and kill Ren Disciple on curve, which felt really good. And then I was able to silence and punch them in the face a couple times with a Void Lord. So I have like 2 silences in the deck as well. So you kind of fast forward through the deck, and we're getting really close to fatigue. He drops a Gul'dan like 1 or 2 turns first, and I'm like, okay, I have to draw a Gul'dan in the next 3 turns, or this is game over. And I draw a Gul'dan, and I'm like, okay, this is something that we can do. But before that, I was planning my turns around drawing Gul'dan in 3 turns. It was like, oh, I'm gonna lose no matter what to do, so I need to plan for Gul'dan, and if I draw him, then I have a chance. And so
played it out, kids.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm doing is lots of tempo-oriented turns, and then I'm like, okay, if I play a bunch of my cheap minions here, this is like the most juicy Defile. I baited 2 juicy Defiles off this guy, and a really easy Hellfire, because I was like, I need to burn him out of all of his board clears. And then I waited for him to go down, and I had the answer of 2 ginormous boards, both his N'Zoth turn and his Gul'dan board. Both of them I played Twisting Nether. And like this guy's got just dumpstered. And then like we finally get to the end, and I play my Gul'dan, and I'm like, okay, I just need 1 Void Lord. I got 4. I got 4 Void Lords and 2 Mistress of Mixtures with my N'Zoth. And I was like, I am golden.
GG.
This game is over, suckle. And we get to the very end, and he played like both of his Twisting Nethers on me, and I had like nothing. And I was like, there's one turn where it was like he played Twisting Nether into Doomsayer. So I have 7 Void Lords, or Void Babies, Void Walkers. There we go.
Void babies.
The Void Babies. And
babies.
I was like, okay, so I can kill this, or I'm pretty sure he has another Hellfire. Pretty sure he has another way of deleting these guys, and I can like use my hero power and use 4 of my Void Lords or Void Walkers on this, and then give him 3, or I could hit him for 7 and then hit him for another 3 for 10 right now, and we're in fatigue. And I was like, if I do this, the game's over in 2 turns. And he has no burst. This game is over. And, like, it was so cool to have, like, such a long-standing game where, like, the chess... It's almost like you're playing chess and you're, like, just slowly putting the pieces. And they're just, like, getting slower. It's, like, slowly they're going into the corner. And you're like, this guy is, like, no escape anymore. And it was like, man, I do like Q-Block and sometimes... Because you have those games where you're like, I can outplay you if I'm playing smart. So it was a rare occasion that I was able to play for a change and felt like I was in the driver's seat for making the decisions and like almost felt like I was forcing his hand in a lot of senses and not necessarily baiting it, but making it such a good play that you can't not play it and then punishing it. It just feels really good.
You were the control and he was the beatdown. You were the control.
Which is never a place you want to control Warlock to be in, to be honest.
Yeah, I have learned, and Rob, I would wager that for a large part of the game you had more cards in your hand. And I realized the other day when I was playing like mirror matches, I started realizing that anytime I was having to like put down cards to deal with whatever they were doing, and they just were allowed to have a lot of cards, and I was the one having to answer all the time, then I was losing. Even if I had a perceivably stronger board, if they had more options, it was like they're going to figure out a way to get around this because they have more options than I do, and I'll just never be able to catch up with them. So
I forgot
control
to mention,
versus control.
This deck runs Jiraxxus.
Oh.
So I played Jiraxxus before playing Gul'dan, and I had like a bunch of Dread Infernals that were kind of on the board over the course of turns, and that was really fun. So I basically won the game with 15 health to give you an idea, because like Jiraxxus doesn't change. You don't go back to 30 health plus 5 armor with Gul'dan. No. You stay at 15 at max. So it's pretty cool.
All right. Given the meta, I'll bet you, I'm surprised Abyssal Enforcers and Jiraxxus don't show up more. I just think people don't think about it, because I could see a world where
Abyssal's rotating
you
too.
You leave out N'Zoth and you put Abyssal Enforcer in, because Abyssal Enforcer could do work for you.
I thought Abyssal was rotating.
It is. It's going to be rotating, but like for the next couple weeks.
Bummer.
Yeah, but you don't want to pull that out of your possessed lackey, right? That's why they have so few demons.
Exactly.
That's the one downfall to it, but it doesn't mean you're going to pull it.
That doesn't mean you have to play possessed lackey either.
Oh darn! I got a 6/6 minion. Well, I'm so mad,
Yeah.
Well,
I'm excited for Jiraxxus'
sometimes
return in the next meta.
really need that Void Daddy to avoid dying.
All right,
I just think it's hilarious that Rob loved that entire story, and the entire thing sounded like hell to me.
Perspective.
Control players, ladies and gentlemen.
Control versus aggro.
All right, let's get Eve back in the driver's seat for storytelling into the lore moment. Let me play your bumper.
You are not prepared.
Stay a while and listen.
Okay, Eve, what's going on with, again, the Greymane?
Well, before we get into that, we got a look at a whole bunch of tiny little, what do you call them? Squares of pictures?
Spoilers?
Because the word just went out of my head.
Sneak peeks?
Yeah, yes, but there's a word for tiny little square of a picture where you
Thumbnails?
can't see the whole thing. There we go! Thumbnail!
I got you.
You can't see the entire picture, but you just get like a little bit of it, and so we're all like, which one is this one? We got some names, Lord Godfrey, and what was the other one? Druid of the Scythe, like a whole bunch of really cool lore sounding names and which one goes with which picture, and it was really cool. Darius Crowley was in there, which I knew it. I knew Darius Crowley had to be in there, and Lord Godfrey obviously as well. Emerus was another name that surprised the heck out of me, and I was talking to Blister Guy in Discord this week about Emerus. So we're gonna get a green dragon, and I swear to you people, it's gonna be a legendary. When is the last time we got a legendary dragon?
Syndragosa? Knights of the Frozen Dragon.
Temporis.
Okay. You know what? The reason I don't remember those guys is because they're not played. When's the last
Yeah.
time we got a dragon that people just like put in all their decks? It was like Chillmaw.
Deathwing Dragon Lord. That
I
was the
think
one that was probably the
people-
most
Yeah.
played recent one.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, it wasn't that far
Cinder
away.
Ghost is still
I
pretty
feel
good.
But
like
you're right. It's not like a thing that's like new dragon. Everybody's playing it. It's not the way it usually goes.
Yeah.
So I have high hopes for this. Emerus is a corrupted green dragon. Actually, we'll probably do a lore moment on the green dragons later. But suffice it to say, when everyone was going, it's the Emerald Dream. Well, they got a tiny part of that right, because Emerus is from the Emerald Dream, or more accurately, the Emerald Nightmare. So that's kind of cool. When I saw that name in that picture, that's what we're getting. And I would bet money that there's going to be more than just one dragon. I might be wrong, and I will admit it if it happens, but I think there's going to be more. So, let's go on to the lore moment for Gen Greymane. Gen Greymane is the king of Gilneas. This is the city that's right beside the Witchwood. He, back in old history, because when you meet him as a person who creates a worgen in World of Warcraft, he's quite old at that point. Earlier in history, he was one of the original members of the Alliance of Lordaeron, which is basically the alliance that they put together of all these different countries to stand against the orcs when they first invaded through the Dark Portal. They all said, we can't do this alone, we have to make an alliance of all these different cities together, and they called it the Alliance of Lordaeron. But Gen Greymane was really proud. This is something that he got from his father, which was like, don't accept help from anybody that shows weakness. So the fact that these other countries were asking him for help, he didn't think that Gilneans needed any help to defend themselves from the orcs. He's like, yeah, try and attack us. We have these huge walls. We have great warriors. We'll be fine. So he didn't really want to even join the Alliance of Lordaeron. He was under pressure kind of from his nobles and the other lords, including Darius Crowley, who was Lord Darius Crowley back in the day, who thought, well, not only should we join this alliance because we need help in case they attack us, but also they're our neighbors. We should just help them if they're under attack. But he just wanted Gilneans to be alone, like to stand on their own power and to not even enter into the fight at all. So when he sent a force to help, it was kind of like a token force. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a huge army. He wasn't a huge part of the fights against the orcs. And then after the war was over, and they took the orcs and they put them in internment camps, he did not want to take his tax money and pay for the orcs to be kept in the internment camps. He was completely against that idea. He just wanted to kill them all. So he withdrew from the alliance and built a huge wall around his city and was like, we're fine on our own. We don't need anybody. Go away, all y'all.
The Hermit Society.
All y'all.
Yeah,
Go away.
so this is kind of also one of the reasons that it's like, if you decide to create a new city in the middle of World of Warcraft that's kind of been completely explored, these are the reasons why we've never seen these people before, and we've never run into this city before. It's kind of like backstory of why we've never met Gilneans. They have this huge wall around their city, and they don't go anywhere, and they don't talk to anybody. But the wall, the building of the wall, was what caused a huge problem, because Lord Darius Crowley's lands, and a lot of people's lands, were outside of the wall. In fact, the wall cut right down the middle of Lord Darius Crowley's lands. And so it caused a civil war. There were all the people who were living on the outside, had their farmlands and everything like that being shut off from the rest of their city, and they became the rebels, and they called the other side the royalists, who were like the wealthy, the nobles who were safe inside their wall and didn't really care if everybody else was stuck on the outside. So they've been dealing with a civil war this entire time. And then comes to the time of the Lich King and the Scourge, and they're being attacked. They're under siege by the Scourge, which goes back to the last weeks when Gen Greymane gave permission for, what was it, Mage Arugal, I think his name was, to open up the Emerald Dream and let the Worgen through. And so the Worgen fought for them. Now, Gen Greymane did not tell his people about this, because he's very proud, doesn't want to ask anybody for help. So he made this agreement with the mage that they were going to do this thing and they were going to like sick the worgen on their enemies, but he didn't tell his people about it. And so all these mysterious murders start happening inside their city. Where people are being found torn to pieces. And he and the men that he is allowed to know about this plan go out on midnight hunting parties to kill the worgen in the middle of the night so they can get rid of the ones that are free and running around and killing people. But he still doesn't tell his populace about the worgen. And slowly people are getting bitten and scratched, and then they turn into worgen, and the population of worgen just keeps growing and growing. And this is when you, the player, steps into World of Warcraft if you choose to become a worgen. This is like your starting part. You come in the middle of a civil war between these two, the Royalists, and Lord Darius Crowley's actually been caught and he's in prison. And also all these worgens attacking the city. And the Forsaken are out on the beach with their warships coming to attack the city as well. So you just walk in on this huge conflict.
You gotta beat abominations and everything. It's fun.
Yeah, it's crazy. What do you remember about it, Grant?
I played it. I actually have played that part. Of all my limited WoW experience, I have a worgen character. I can't remember what his name is offhand, but yeah, it was cool because it's just chaos. It's just all this stuff going on, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you are trying to, as a person, you're eventually going to become a worgen, and so you have to go through all these steps and complete all the quests, and then you get bit, and then they lock you away until you can learn to deal with it. And
see Darius Crowley with the shady glasses before he turns away in the cutscene when you get encaged. It's like, I think you are not beyond rescue. Like, it was so cool.
That's right.
Godfrey.
Godfrey is what I said, of course. Sorry. Crowley is the dank shooting mage undead guy because he gets killed.
Crowley is the rebel.
I don't want to spoil
He's the one
it.
who's causing the civil war.
Yeah.
He's the leader of the opposition, the rebels. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
and
the
Shadowfang Keep is north of Gilneas. Right outside.
He used to be best friends with Gen Greymane. Like, they were lords together. He went to the Alliance of Lordaeron with him and everything. But then he kind of went, what kind of decisions are you making? Like, this is not in the best
what you
interest of
doing?
your people.
You wrong.
I don't agree with any of this. And then was like, okay, at this point, we're going to have to take you down. We're going to have to take over our own city because all of these decisions you're making, this is not in the best interests of your people.
We'll have to talk
and
about
the first
him
person
more
you see
later for another episode, I think. We'll have to maybe do a bunch of worgen leaders, kind of like a rapid fire thing after the expansion. That'll be really fun.
The first person that you see when you run into the opening zone is Gen's son, whose name escapes me. Can you look that up for me real quick?
Yeah, I can.
Can't remember the name of his son. And he's organizing the fighting. And you go in and you're supposed to attack a bunch of worgen. Liam Greymane. And then you're evacuating people out of the city because at this point there's just too many worgen. There's worgen everywhere. They're on the rooftops. They're jumping like out of the buildings onto people. And so you're just trying to get everybody out there alive. And you get scratched. So it's like, you'll probably be fine. It's just a little scratch. And then you continue on and you're still fighting and you're just trying to get as many people out alive as you can and hold off the worgen for long enough. And then, of course, the Forsaken are also battering down the walls. And then everything goes black. And you find out time passes. You turned into a worgen. You attacked your friends. Don't know if you killed them or not. You might have. You were running wild in the woods for who knows how long. Could have been just a couple of weeks. And your friends who believe in you trap you and capture you and take you back to the city where Lord Darius, no, sorry, now I'm doing the same thing Rob does. Godfrey just wanted to kill you. Godfrey doesn't think any of the worgens should have lived. He thinks they're all savage animals. But your friends believe in you. Gen Greymane believes in you. So they capture you, put you in a cage, and his alchemist has made a potion that can temporarily bring you back sanity. It's not going to last forever, which is why you eventually get the night elves.
You're doing quests to get this and progress.
Yes, but they let you out because they need you to fight the Forsaken. They
Yep.
need all the bodies they can get. Now Sylvanas is there. All of her undead are there. And even Godfrey, who hates Worgen, is like, well, they'll be really useful if we throw them against the undead. So you
he's
are set
using you.
free. Yes. He's fine if you're cannon fodder. He's
And
fine
this is
to
during
throw
the
you up
Cataclysm,
against
right?
the massive abominations. Yes. So as you are fighting as a Worgen against the Forsaken, pieces of your land are falling into the sea because massive earthquakes are shaking the entire continent and more of it is going underwater. So it's just chaos. It's
awesome.
honestly pretty
It's pretty
amazing
cool.
to go through this opening zone.
It's one of the best starting zones for a
Oh,
character.
yeah. I've never had
Yeah,
more fun
it's
playing in
intense.
Warcraft than when I was doing the leveling zone just there. The music is
So you-
perfectly creepy as well, I must say.
Yeah.
I love the harpsichords.
Mhm.
They're the best.
You do a whole bunch of quests. You finally get to this point where Gan actually wants to go back and retake Gilneas. He wants to lead all of the Worgen because they're all super strong and powerful now, and they kind of got their minds for a little while. And he's going to take this whole force, and we're going to take back Gilneas. We're going to take back our home. And Sylvanas is there. And they're like, oh, we could just take out the queen. Go get her. And
Look at
she's
the
being like
queen.
overwhelmed by Worgen everywhere, and it looks real bad for her. And she goes, I wonder how well all these people would fight if they didn't have their king. And she aims a poisoned arrow at Gen. And his son Liam jumps in front of it and takes it. So Liam dies in his father's arm.
And this is
And
like
of
the pinnacle
course-
of the quests, right, Eve? Like when you're questing, you get to watch
Yes,
all of this
of
happen.
course. You have been working with Liam, like hand in hand this entire time, because they want you to love this guy. They want you to get attached to him and see what a great, wonderful king he's going to be and how brave he is. And then he just dies right in front of you, and Sylvanas kills him. So, Horde and Alliance, this is why Gen Greymane hates Sylvanas with a burning passion. She killed his
Mm.
son. I mean, she
Oh, that
didn't
makes more
try
sense.
to.
In the Legion thing, when Sylvanas perceivably betrays them, she didn't really, but that's why Gen's like, aha!
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's always looking for her to betray. Because
Looking for more
he
opportunities
hates her.
for the entire alliance to aggro towards her rather than like what's actually the issue. Is like he's constantly trying to shift the war path to focus on Sylvanas as a whole.
Interesting.
And then they decide, the Forsaken decide that they are going to spread the plague throughout the entire Gilneas city. So even though the Gilneans have taken it back and they have pushed away the Forsaken, they can't stay. Because they overhear a secret meeting between Sylvanas and her horde that she's going to spread the plague. So they have to flee again. They have to flee their hometown before she drops the plague on it. And, you know, everybody would just die. You can't fight that. There's no way to fight that. And it hangs around for a really long time, so they're not going to be able to go back to Gilneas and live there. Which broke Gen's heart, because he knew the thing that his son cared the most about was saving their people and their land, like being able to go back there one day and to return to it. So they all flee. The Night Elves show up with a whole bunch of boats, and they ship the Worgen all off to the Night Elf starting zone, which is where the Worgen are now. They've been accepted kind of by the Night Elves, who feel responsible for the fact that they're all Worgen. And then when they're there, they're kind of like, hey, while you're here, we have a couple problems we're dealing with. Maybe you could give us a hand. So the starting zone from that point on is the same as if you had created a Night Elf character. So you basically get that
Slowly
bit for the
transition
Gilnean
into that.
opening, and then you transition into the rest of the questing to max level is all the stuff that Night Elves would have done. And Darius Crowley and his daughter are... Oh, that's what happened. I forgot. Lord Godfrey. Lord Godfrey did not know that in all of this, Gen Greymane got bit. Because this entire time he's been in human form. But he's been taking the medicine on the side.
And nobody knows that
And-
he's secretly taking it.
Right. He's been keeping it from his people and everybody else and Lord Godfrey. And then when he goes to Darius and says, I want you and all of your rebels to join together because we have way bigger things to think about. Like, we have this enemy, we've got the Forsaken, we've got the Cataclysm going on. This is much bigger than our internal struggles. We need to join together. And Darius is like, I don't know if I trust you because you're just going to use us like cannon fodder, like Godfrey wants. You know, you don't care about us. You don't see us as your citizens, as your people. And then Greymane transformed into a worgen, and he goes, I understand exactly what you're going through. And Darius is like, okay, you're cool. All right, we can do this. We can be
Got
one.
street
We'll join
cred
together.
immediately.
Yes. But as soon as Lord Godfrey sees his king turn into a worgen, he's like, oh no, forget this. I was fine to use them as cannon fodder, but I'm not going to have a king who's a worgen, who's a beast. So he goes behind his back with a bunch of other nobles and betrays him, kidnaps him, threatens to kill him, and you as the player have to go in and like assassinate a bunch of nobles who have betrayed the king and are talking treason. And rather than have a king who is a worgen, Godfrey throws himself off a cliff. He commits suicide. And then later is raised up in Undeath by Sylvanas.
And he is way cooler now, let me tell you. All right. And that is actually an important point that Eve is wrapping us up with, because that is the card art. Teaser is a part of Godfrey's hand holding a gun. And if you look closely, you ain't seeing no furry nails on this man. He did not change into a worgen. The dude's dead, and those are some gnarly fingers. So this is definitely undead Godfrey form. So I hope that he is the Hunter legendary. I really do. I think that he would be such a cool card.
Why would he be Hunter?
Because he has the pistols, girl. The pistols.
Warlock.
Well,
But he could be Warlock.
Could be the
or
other
Mage.
rogue legendary.
It would make more to be a warlock, honestly. He ends up betraying all sides. He betrays Sylvanas. He betrays the Gilneas. He basically goes, I'm not going to serve against any of you people because none of you are worthy to be my ruler, and goes off to Shadowfang Keep where he's got his own little kingdom, and he's
At least he's
going to
consistent.
try and attack both sides. He's like, I'll take all of you on.
He's consistent with betrayals. If
Probably why
anything.
Rob likes him.
Oh, dude, I love him.
He's
I
a
love
consistent betrayer. Got it.
He is the betrayer. Maybe he has more hope than the betrayer that made it Hearthstone in the first place, Illidan, who just the only love he's getting is graphical updates and not balance or changing and like making it cool. But we can still hope that in the future expansions we get a new Illidan, like they did with Elise and other forms of other heroes. So let's keep going. We got to finish up the show, guys. We have no new iTunes reviews. Please give us some iTunes reviews if you have the time. It helps us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We have not gotten a single iTunes review since February 15th. And this is a little over a month and 10 days after, just to give you an idea. So we do need some.
Please.
Please, Maurice, go get the elephants. Have them do the reviews this week. We need some more.
We have also no new patrons this week, but we did get a couple updates with some people that had upped their pledge over the last week, and we really appreciate that as we're transitioning. I know that even Grant and I are all waiting on the next month to roll over for their pre-purchase.
Our pre-purchase.
Exactly.
Much money.
So if you guys want to support us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/VelensChosen and support the show financially if you choose to. It does help us out.
Even just $1, like just $1, even $1.
It does help a lot. And also, if you want to find our merch, you can find that on our website at VelensChosen.com. You can check all of our links there. You can send us some questions in our Discord. You can talk with us about your ranked climbs in Wild and in Legend. You can share deck lists. You can talk about the expansion, and you can geek out about the lore with Eve and our brand spanking new lore channel. We also have Taz Dingo in there from another podcast that he's been doing, and they've been having a good chat with Blister Guy this week on some new lore. Additionally, sometimes I'll peek my head in there and say something that is mostly wrong, but just something that I think is cool. But you guys can go see that.
I have
there.
to keep myself from spoilers because when I go in there, I just like linking all the pictures.
It's
talking
the best.
About all the
It's
lore.
the best because I say
And
something
I'm
and
like,
Eve
I
says
have
no
nothing but-
spoilers, and then like goes into proceeds to give spoilers. So it happens to the best
I
of
can't
us.
help it. I just love the lore.
You know
I
what
just wanna
channel to
talk
mute,
about it all the
people.
time.
You know what channel to mute. All right, Eve, where can people find you?
Sorry.
Coughing.com. There you go.
Trying not to cough this episode like
Get a
all
picture of a
episode.
Pokemon.
Coughing.
Oh, you can find
Coughing.
me on Twitter at LoreMasterEve, my Battle.net I don't even know if I can give it out anymore. I'm full up. I'm gonna have to start deleting people. KAELEIGH #1919. Like I said last week, if you see me online, please just give me a little hi, and then I'll put you in my favorites because I do. I have to go through and edit out some people.
Grant?
If you wish to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Twitter at WatchmanHS. And I will take friend requests on Battle.net. I cycle through my people, so let's see. It's Watchman #1140. Join us on our Discord. You can find the links to our Discord at villainschosen.com. That's where it's happening the most. That's where we get the most interaction, I think, and the most meaningful interaction. Rob,
If you guys
your
want to find me,
turn.
I'm on Twitter with the tag @NotRob. Same on Instagram. I posted a really funny picture about how many manga books were in the local barbershop by my house.
I saw
That's
that.
pretty
That was
interesting.
insane.
It's a
That was
lot.
insane.
So you guys
Looked like
can
a
check that out.
library.
Yeah, it did. You can check that out there. If you guys like Overwatch, you can check out omniclab.com. And for all of your Overwatch needs, there is something pretty cool that I've been seeing a lot of pro Overwatch players in the Houston Outlaws roster, as well as some top streamers that I know of personally that are very popular, are really getting into Hearthstone recently. And one of the guys who just had on our show has been DMing me back and forth about, like, what are the top decks right now, and bought a bunch of packs, and said that he would be willing to come on our show if he wanted to, and I told him he had to earn it first. So he had to get Legend a couple times beforehand. But that's just a friendly banter, because he knows that I'm giving him a lot hard time because he used to be a top 100 Legend player before all of the big metas like started developing. I think after Grand Tournament he left and stopped playing. So he's been off of the game for about 2 years now. But now he's like a very big streamer, averages like over 250 people watching on any given day. So he's pretty big, top
That's
500 Overwatch player. But anyways, if you guys want to go check out Omnic Lab, it's been a blast. We're doing map guides. We're doing hero guides. We're talking all sorts of fun business over there. And the community game night is the 30th. If you like Overwatch and you are a Velen's Chosen fan, you can head over to Omnic Lab's Discord and play on the night of the 30th. You have a big game night going. So that's it for us. I am more than hyped to give you this episode. I'm sorry that it's timing wise is like literally right before the mega announcement. So we'll talk for quite a few hours next week for you to make up for the damage, I guess. But guys, remember, not all who wander are lost, and enjoy the card reveals and the fun season. Try not to be too involved in the meta and just be excited for what's coming around the bend. And remember, the which wood cometh. See you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, no outro music for the live stream, guys. Sorry. Can't find it.
Word. Okay.
Thank you guys for the chat, for coming. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe. Not that it does anything these days, but